Hi, everyone. So today's topic is career growth hacking. It's a nice subject, meaning how to find data jobs quickly. And the key word is quickly. And I guess before we talk about the right way, the answer is definitely not to go back to school. You don't need to reinvest in another degree, another year or 2 years in school. No. How to find a data job quickly? Some say it's hard and some say it's easy. I say it's easy if you find the right way. And let's think about the process. It's real simple. So for instance, you are the employer. If you look for someone who can do the job, right? And I am the candidate, I try to get your attention. So you notice me and you give me the opportunity to meet. So we meet and I tell you, I can do the job, but you're not convinced. And I will try to convince you. I will try to clear your doubt. And I will try to change your mind. And I realized that I have competition. And I will try to impress you with what I did in the past, so I can stand up from the crowd and being the fittest or the strongest candidate. And after all this, I realized, before I try to convince and impress the employer, I need to convince and impress myself. Have you, sometimes had the same thought, because you have self-doubt. You're not confident. And if you're not confident, and it's going to be hard for you to convince the employer, right? And I want to say this first, because that is actually the most important part of this presentation. There's no better way to convince and impress myself than trying to do the work now. If I am already doing the work and I get it, and I will become comfortable, I will become confident, right? Because I'm already doing the job and I understand the job. I understand what it requires. So I can go to the employer and I can talk about the work. And the highest level of conversation, like any conversation you have ever had with anybody, the best conversation you can think of is probably that you can finish, or I, as the candidate, I can finish what you as the employer want to say. The best interview is I can explain the job even better than your job description. So today, I'm going to use two examples to show and to demonstrate what I meant. Two very simple examples. Because if you think about the process of getting hired, there are three, most critical obstacles that you will need to overcome. The first one is to learn just enough, right, to get in. So we have to find the right learning path to understand and to learn just enough before we go to the interview. And there is no way that you can find all the answers before you start looking. That's impossible. So it's really, really important that we learn just enough so we can pass the interview, right? And the second obstacle is how to get interviews and get as many interviews as possible so we can get better at interviewing. And the third one is obviously how to pass the interview. So the first one is learn just enough, okay, to get ready. And number two is get interview. And number three is pass the interview. So today I'm going to talk about two sections in skills and project experience. So I'm going to talk about project experience first. So this is just like any writing block you put on the resume to describe a job or maybe a project, right? But before I go into the details, because if now I ask you to read this, it's just like you reading any other resume, people's resume. We have no feeling. We have absolutely no feeling. So I want to show you the project first, and then we'll come back and then read the project experience. And then I think you will have some feeling. And you will get to know, every single sentence we write down here is true. So first project, I'm going to show you two very simple projects. I like to use very simple project to make the big point, okay? So the first project is actually a real project. And I changed the name of the employer so we don't disclose or reveal the true identity of the employer. So I changed the name to CloudGuard. And I think of this company as an IT company, selling software for security. So it could be cybersecurity. So this is a good name, CloudGuard. It's a piece of software to make sure everything that the company is doing is within a secure environment, okay? So let me just show you the project first. This is too small. I'm going to increase this to, let's say, 150. Okay, so you can see. We don't have to go through every single word. Just read the highlighted area. So this is to hire the data analyst in sales operations. So the keyword, the key phrase is sales operations. So the deliverable, you need to submit 6 to 8 slides and also your Power BI workbook or Excel. So we choose to use Power BI. And this company is called CloudGuard, provides IT security solutions through hardware and software, okay? And this is to review just one region. It's Asia Pacific. So in short, APAC is one of the 3 regions. And this region has 300 plus employees. And let's just go back to 2016, the regional review. And after we finish the review, this will become the basis for 2017 annual operating plan, AOP. So we'll review 2016, and based on the review, we'll create the new plan for 2017. So that's like any company's, planning process. The goal is to, go through a ETL process and clean the data if necessary. And there will be multiple tables. In fact, there will be 6 tables. 6 tables, including sales, expenses, headcount, and IT spend. So think of these, the names of the table. So sales, expenses, headcount, and IT spend. And we'll need to create tables and charts after we clean the data. And then we will need to present the recommendations to senior management team, to sales management team, and for their review. So here are the details of the work. Number 1, identify 1 or 2 countries to focus on in 2017 to grow the sales, to maybe control the expenses, and to increase the return on sales. So this is the new term. Even for the people who don't have the business background, we need to understand business. And I assure you, a lot of the business knowledge, the business sense is actually common sense. And it's not hard. After I explain it to you, you should understand. So return on sales, you can do a simple Google search and you will find out. And it's defined as operating profit divided by sales. So operating profit is sales minus expenses, and then divided by sales. And there is a different name for this. So sales minus expenses is called margin. And this ratio could be, the percentage margin or margin ratio. And the last one is IT spend. So once again, it's sales expenses and margin IT spend. So number two, we need to identify three things that the company did well, or the region did well in 2016. And then three areas for improvement in 2017. All right. Like what? Maybe we can allocate the manpower, meaning headcount better. Maybe we can allocate the resources better so we can, accomplish more sales. Okay. And maybe we should focus on some products over other products to achieve more sales. Maybe we should, control the expenses. These are the actual versus the plan. So we can do better, in certain regions where we saw maybe negative variance, meaning the actual or the assign is greater than plan, right? So basically, it asks you to find the aspects that didn't do well, malfunction during 2015 and 16. So the data actually includes 2 years, in 2015 and 16. And with 2 years, you can calculate the growth or the increase or decrease, between 2 years. Number 4 is probably the bonus point. So if you really want to stand out, you will need to do 1, 2, 3 right, and plus you can present one interesting insight and use graph to showcase this insight. A little bit of terminology. So headcount is headcount, number of employees, total name. So we're going to change this column to partner. So you can use partner, you can use distributor, of the company's software, or maybe reseller, of the company's software. And compensation is just commission, it's sales commission that you pay to the sales force, the salespeople. And these are special acronym. It's how much we spend on marketing. Book amount is basically sales. Okay, I know. I think probably I lost some of you, and too much to digest, within a short time. I think this is how everybody feels when you just read the text. It's only half a page. It's hard to remember, right? And you don't have any structure or any workflow that you can follow. So I want to tell you the secret, and it's always better, after you take a look at the data and then come back and read the text again, right? And then you will develop some feeling, and you will also gain some clarity, on what this is all about. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to the data. And the data will give you that shortcut, the clarity you need. Remember, we talked about the 4 aspects: sales, expenses, and then the headcount, and then the IT spend, right? So sales, let's look at the easy one first, the headcount. And notice that we put APAC before every, name, meaning this is for just one region, Asia Pacific, right? So headcount. Very quickly, I want you to develop a good feeling with the data. Look at this data. So this is a sheet, right? So the difference between sheet and table is one sheet can contain multiple tables. So in this case, this is one sheet, and it includes two tables, right? 1 and 2, right? And if you look at this table, once again, just ask yourself, what is the dimension? What is the measure? So this is the dimension. What is it? I think takes you a second to realize this is country. So country is always a dimension. It's geography, right? Country. And what is the second dimension? I think you right there you see the second dimension is quarter, right? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, 2015, right? Okay, so country and quarter. But what are these numbers? Of course, so this is the one measure. It's headcount. So 2 dimensions, 1 measure. Country, quarter, and then headcount. This table is the same, but the only difference is this is 2016, right? Okay, so I think you started to ask yourself, is this a good structure? And with the proper training, and I used to ask people to hate this structure. So this is very, very bad data. First of all, this doesn't have to be 2 tables. This should be 1 table, right? And the right structure, for the table is every dimension, has its own column, but only 1 column. And every measure has its own column, but only 1 column. So we want to see just 1 table with country, quarter, and then headcount. So 3 columns table, right? So we need to clean this. So knowing that this data is dirty and we need to clean it later on. Now let's look at IT spend. You see, it's similar. This sheet includes 2 tables. The first table has 1 dimension, another dimension. What is it? It's year, right? So 1 dimension is country, the second dimension is year, 2015, and then 2016. How many measures? 3 measures: population, GDP, IT spend. And very quickly you realize these are macro data, these are data about the whole country, not the company, right? So this is really about the market research data you can get from the internet. So once again, we need to clean this data. We need to combine 2 tables into 1, and we will have how many columns? 5 columns. So 2 dimensions and 3 measures: country, year, and then you have population, GDP, and IT spend, right? So we start to have some idea what we will need to do. So then let's look at sales and expenses. If you look at sales data, and obviously, this is a lot, right? This is a lot. But it doesn't take you that long to realize, okay, so I have 1 dimension, country. Remember to name, so this is partner, right? Or distributor or reseller. Country, partner. So these 4 columns are really 1 dimension. So you have product type, product subtype, and product family. And this is, very, very high level. You will see it has only 2 values: material classification, and they told you the data has some issues, so you will need to maybe clean this up. Okay, so 3 dimensions: country, partner, product. And then there's another dimension. And very quickly you see, right? So quarter, you see Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, 2015, and Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, 2016. And once again, I want you to hate this format. And this is unnormalized data, and you will need to clean this up, right? So we will need to normalize this table. So we have country, partner, product, and quarter, as dimensions, and booked amount as the single measure. Booked amount in this case is just sales. And we remember from, the Word document. Booked amount is just sales. Okay, do you feel better now? Yeah? Do you feel that you have more clarity? Absolutely. So now let's look at APAC expenses. So this is, once again, very messy. Without proper training, you may think this is okay, right? This is the kind of data we see every day. But with proper training, I want you to hate this format. It's actually really, really bad. Okay, now, this data, you see country is one dimension. And then this is GL. And for the people from the business, accounting, finance background, you probably know what GL means. GL is general ledger. It's an account in accounting, right? General ledger. And managerial group. So in this case, you will see the breakdown into compensation, sales, marketing. So these are all expenses. And the expense item, expenses itemized into different GL accounts. And as you notice, it just takes you a while to realize, if you add this all up, you actually have this number, right? 3.7 million, you see here. So you know that you don't need result. If you have all the details, you can calculate the total, okay? So one dimension, another dimension. What about these? Okay, so you notice that the quarter is hidden in these columns. So Q1 15, Q2 15, all the way to Q4 15, and all the way to Q4 16, right? So you have 8 quarters in 2 years. Okay, but you also notice that these are expenses. So obviously, these numbers are expenses, and these are the GL accounts, right? It's just a breakdown of the expenses. But you notice that you have 2 groups, and one is called assign, and the other one is plan. Okay, so how do you understand assigned? Assign is like you have a big expense number, but you need to allocate the expenses into different GL. So this is basically allocation of the actual expenses. So you can consider this actual expenses, right? Versus the plan. The plan was actually created probably in 2014 December, for the year 2015, right? Okay, so if you look at this one, this is really, really simple. This is basically assign divided by plan, right? You can validate that, which is true. Assign divided by plan. Okay, so if you have this, you don't need this. Okay, so you're going to take out all the percentages. Q1 15%, Q2 15%. Okay, so I hope I haven't lost you. I just want to show you the problem with this data, right? So I want you to see the signal from the noise. So dimension country, dimension GL managerial group, and then 2 measures, assign and plan. And the third dimension is quarter. And that's it. That's it. And then you're going to normalize this table into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. One thing I want to show you, you don't need these either. So this is the overall result. This is basically a row total, right? If you have 8 quarters, you can calculate yearly total or 2-year total, no problem. Okay. So now you understand the data, and I want to show you that, 2 tables, 2 more tables, so 4 tables, 5 and 6. So altogether 6 tables. And did you notice that I actually named this range to headcount 2015? I also named this range headcount 2016. I named this range to IT spend 2015. I named this range IT spend 2016. I named this range to what? To sales. I should have named this range to sales. How do you know? You can go to formula and click name manager. You should see. So I name all of them. So if I go to Power BI now, if I go to transform data, so I'm going to spend 1 hour for each project. I hope you can walk away, remember the lesson. Just give me a second to bring over the Power Query. Okay, so first of all, just give this a second. Because I moved the file, so then this doesn't work anymore. What I can do is, you know what, I can create a parameter, new parameter, and I will name this parameter pass. Okay, and I can go to the actual, I can get the pass from here and come back, and I can paste it to the current value. I need to add 1 extra backslash for this to work. All right, then after this, I want to create another parameter, new parameter, and I name this file. So I'm going to, because there's only 1 file over here. So I capture the file name with extension and come back here. So this is the file name. Okay, with this, I'm going to use the pass and file to replace this in the advanced editor. So I'm going to replace this, actually including the quotes. I'm going to replace this with pass and file. And this should work. Wait. Bear with me. I didn't do rehearsal about this presentation, so it's pretty much improvised. Oh, come on. Okay. So let me just copy this. I'm going to need this for the other file as well. So you see, this should work. So this warning should go away. Okay, it did go away. So this one, expenses. So this is, just give me a second, bear with me. I'm going to replace this with pass. Oh, shit. This should be pass and file. I want to copy this. I didn't copy the first time. So this should work. And this should work. So next time, if I move the file, I just change the pass. and then it should fix all the problems. So this should work. So I have 3 more. All right. And this guy. All right, so then sales, it should be the last one. Okay. All right, so what about headcount? This should work. So now it's all working. Okay, so I just want I think your memory is still fresh. If you look at the headcount 2015 and before I, normalized the table, it looked like this, right? So what I need to do is, so this is the sort of, oh, wait a minute. It actually looked like this, sorry. It should look like this. And after you promote the header, it look like this, right? So it changed type. So this is text. Sorry, this is text, whole number. And what I did is unpivoted other column. So you see before normalization, it has 5 columns. After normalization, you have 3 columns. So we have country, this is actually quarter, and this is headcount, right? So now we rename the column. So this is completely clean. So you see country, quarter, headcount. Okay, there's a question. What is headcount? Headcount is basically you're counting the head, the number of employees. Okay. One question, please, can you demonstrate the normalization? This is actually really simple. So if I do this from scratch, it's very, very easy. For instance, I will do a new query, reading from I will need to find the source data. So it's within test, it's called guard, cloud guard. Yeah. So this is the source file. It's really, really easy. But it will show over here, it's gonna show all the sheets and tables. You see, these are the 4 sheets. I'm not going to take sheets because this sheet includes 2 tables and this sheet includes 2 tables, right? So I'm only going to take the tables. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to take just one table over here, okay? So if I click OK, because I already have one, it's going to name it and probably headcount underscore 2015 1. Oh, what happened? Yeah, you see that? Okay, so what I need to do over here, it's really simple. You just right click this column. You see, I select the first column, right click this column, and I click unpivot outer column. Boom. See how easy it is, eh? And then I can just rename this. So this is country, and this is quarter. And this is headcount. You see, it's very, very easy. So this is the same as this one. So I'm going to delete this. I don't need this. So that's pivot. And then I did the same for 2016. And then I combined the 2 into just one table, right? And then I don't need these 2 tables anymore. So I actually disable them from loading. I did the same for IT spend. So after I normalize it, it should look like this. Country, year, so 2 dimensions and 3 measures. Very, very beautiful. So clean and beautiful. And I also cleaned some of these So if I don't replace error, you're going to see some error over here, right? And before this, you see NA, And if I change data type to decimal, so I'm going to have error. So then I replace error with null, meaning missing data, okay? So I did the same 2016 and I combined them into just one table, okay? But you see the two tables wrote into one, but with the year. So this is 15 and this is 16, right? And for sales, so this is before change. It looked like this, very ugly. And then after I unpivot, you will see this is the attribute and this is the value, but this actually includes the quarter. So I split this. So this is the quarter. You can delete this, and then I remove that one column I don't need, and I rename the column. So now it's all clean. It's all clean. And then I change type. It's all clean. And if I go to expenses, the same thing. Expenses, it's a bit more, it's messier. So if I show you, so at first it looked like this. So I need to remove all the percentages. So you see I remove all the percentages. And I also remove the last 3 columns, right? So I have less columns. And then I filter row. Why do I filter row? If you recall, we don't need result. We don't need the result. And after that, after this, I unpivot them. But then I need to pivot them again because I actually need assign and plan in 2 separate columns. So I split first. So I capture the quarter. So then this will be the column name. I pivot them, and you see this becomes the column name. And I rename them. I change the type. Okay. All right. So now I clean everything. So after this, I also create a very simple quarter table over here. So you can do this through programming. It's pretty easy. And the year as well. You can also do this through programming. Okay. And I get the unique country. So I have another table. So after this, you will see, let me just say yes to this. I know it probably look boring to you, but it's very important we go through the data prep, the data cleaning. So now, with all the data normalized and cleaned up, we could create a data model. And that's, how you make everything easy from now on. Okay, just give me a second. It's loading. So this is a very, very simple example, but even with an example this simple, you can make a big deal of it. So I think today's presentation is really about how to make a big deal of it. Or how to sort the quarters. I'm going to show you the trick. I actually didn't sort the table, but I will sort the charts using a different technique. I don't know why it takes so long to load this simple data. I think it's almost done. Let's be hopeful. Okay, it's done. My God. All right. Come on. Okay. So let's take a look at the data model. This is the most important part. The computer is not helping me today. Okay, just bear with me. And the data model is, the critical part of the learning. And if you know how to organize data into a data model, everything becomes easier. And all these are connected. SQL and Power BI, and underneath both tools, we need to learn data structure. Okay, so now I think in front of you, you see the data model. We have 4 fact tables. So headcount is a fact table, and IT spend is a fact table. And you remember, this is actually a macro data for the entire country. But headcount is for the company, and sales is for the company, expenses is for the company. And then you have country as a dimension table. And you also have quarter and year as 2 more dimension tables. If you look at the line, you should see, country to country, one-to-many relationship, one-to-many relationship, one-to-many relationship, one-to-many relationship. Very, very simple, data model. So this is a quarter to quarter, one-to-many relationship. And this is quarter to quarter, one-to-many relationship. But these 2 tables, IT spend, doesn't have, doesn't have the measures by quarter. It's by year. So this is year to year, one-to-many. And this is also, this one. It's, okay, which one? Oh, actually 3 tables are by quarter. Headcount, sales, expenses, and only IT spend is by year. But the year to quarter, there's also a relationship, right? Yeah. Okay. So for all the dimension tables, the primary key is unique. And for all the fact tables, the foreign key is not unique. Okay. So what's next is how you define the KPI. So coming back here, I'm not going to tell you why we create this KPI. So this requires you to have a little bit of the business knowledge, so you know what KPIs you need to really, measure the operational part of the business. So I'm going to show you 3 tables first. So this is a really good table to show you. So it's pretty easy for you to, have a glance at, this is by country, and this is sales by country. And this is a very simple, table, right? And this is a matrix. This is a table. So country, and you see sales, and with the data bar, it's very easy for you to see it's sorted by sales. So Australia has the highest sale. And sales is not the only important KPI. Margin is also important. You can have, big sales, but what if, we don't make money, right? So margin is important too. And the ideal situation for the country is high sales and high margin. And for Australia, it is #1 in sales, but in terms of margin, it's 68.2, not the highest. The highest is actually here, in Indonesia, right? But Indonesia has tiny sales. So that translates the margin, it's a lot less compared to this. So sales is important, margin is important. So if you think these 2 both are important, you probably can create a chart, a very unique chart. Let me show you the chart first. This chart. What chart is this? You can tell. It's a scatter chart. It's scatter plot. So basically you have sales as your x-axis, so these are sales, and percentage margin as your y-axis. And then you can see how the countries distribute in this two-dimensional, graph. As we said before, the ideal situation is for a country to have high sales and also high margin, right? So if you look at Australia, it's high sales, definitely, but margin is not that high. And if you look at Indonesia, it's low sales, but high margin. And I think India is in that spot, it's not the highest sales, not the highest margin, but both sales and margin percentage are relatively high. So this is the good spot. So, our objective is probably to move all the countries to this direction, high sales and high margin. You don't want to see countries in this corner or this corner. And even worse, if it's low sales, no margin, probably we need to get out of that market. And China is a very unique case. And China is a big country. How come we see China in this corner, right? So this is something for you to understand. After you, with all the KPIs, you create a chart, you start to think about, what are the things we need to pay attention. So the other thing is to look at expenses, actual expenses versus plan. Right? This is actual expenses versus plan. And right away, you should calculate the percentage expenses variance, which is this minus this and divided by this. Okay, so once again, you see some positive variance. In fact, I did this wrong. I don't know if you see this. This is actually not right. The color. So usually this is not red, it's brown. But I think we can use this to show something not good, negative, and this is something good. So I should actually reverse this, right? Because negative variance is actually good, right? That means your actual expenses is less than the plan because the expense is a bad guy, right? So in order to change this, it's pretty easy. I go here and click conditional formatting and go to data bar again. So I just need to reverse this. So this should be blue and this should be brown. So, okay. Oh, I think the color expenses variance, conditional formatting, data bar. Sorry guys, if I bore you. I meant to use the lighter color. Okay. That's better. Okay, so this is the second way to look at it. And the third way to look at it is you can divide sales by headcount. Basically how much revenue, how much sales one individual, one employee can generate. So what do you see? New Zealand, Indonesia, so every individual actually generates the most sales, and Australia is not the best in terms of this. Okay. So the other thing I want you to look at is the expense structure. So this table is expenses divided by sales percentage. And this is the total expenses divided by sales. You may wonder, expense is only 30%. That means the margin is 68. The margin is so fat. I want to caution you because this is only sales expenses. If you think about it, the company has probably a big development department, right? So what about all the developers and their salaries, right? And those cost a lot here. So we need to somehow, if those costs get capitalized, and become part of the product and software we sell, and then we still need to amortize that. So it become another expense item we need to deduct, right? So, but just based on the expenses for sales alone, and you realize, Australia has 31, but if you look at India, it's only 16%. So does it mean India is a low cost, low expense country? India is a low cost country, but contrary to your belief, you may think China is also should be a low cost country, but however, you see 44%. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. I'm going to show you maybe this chart. So you need to look at them together. So this is by product type, right? Product type. So if you look at Australia, I sort them, by sales. So you can see that for Australia, the support actually generates more revenue than product itself. So 26 million versus 10 million. How is that possible? Is it possible? I think it's entirely possible, because nowadays you have the software as a service, right? Software as a service, so it's a subscription model. So after you develop the software and then you sell it, but every year the customer need to pay the subscription fee. So basically that's in the support stage, right? It's not in the product development stage. And product, and it takes more people to sell the product, and it takes less people to support the product. So support and product, these two revenue streams probably have different expense structure. And China, you see, it's still in the early stage. It's in it is still trying to sell the product. But once it's over that stage, probably you will see the cost go down. Okay. What does negative sales amount mean? An account receivable. Do we have a negative sales? We don't have negative sales. Do we have negative sales? Oh, here, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you do this project, you should raise this. If it doesn't make sense, and then we should raise this. It could be, it's a sale, but then you have a return, right? And then sometimes, if you, I don't know who is doing this. It's pretty bad. Let me just go to a different. I hope it doesn't affect you. I'm going to take this person out. All right. I'm not sure how to refresh this, but this is not good. Okay, so let me just recollect my train of thought. Okay, so one thing I want you to look at as well is this. So if you look at the macro data, right? GDP and IT spend and population, you can see that China has the highest GDP over here, but in terms of IT spend, Japan actually is the highest. Okay, I think it's a good measure if you divide IT spend by GDP. And that shows you the tech component, the IT component, how big it is in the GDP. So is the GDP generated by making clothes or actually high-tech product and service? So if it's high-tech, and then this ratio should be very high. And then the country with a high ratio, IT spend over GDP is probably the country, for this company to expand, right? So this is an important measure. And because we have only 2 years of data, and we could calculate the year-over-year growth, GDP, and growth is important too, right? So you don't look at GDP as a static measure. So Japan is growing 12% year-over-year, so that's great. And China is actually only 1%, and Australia is actually shrinking. So this is something we should consider when you create long-term strategy. Would you like to expand in the country with shrinking economy? Probably you need to think twice, right? IT spend year over year. So I want to draw your attention to one particular country, which is Indonesia. I know Indonesia, in terms of GDP, it's small compared to China and Japan, even India, right? But I think most of you realize Indonesia is a big country. In terms of population, it's a huge country with 200 million people, I believe. And I also want you to look at the IT GDP year-over-year growth. So this is actually quite high, 8.3%. If you look at IT spend year-over-year growth, that's 12%. That's crazy. So Indonesia is actually a country on the rise, and it's a market we cannot overlook, right? Yeah. So how did we calculate the market share? Right. If you look at the market share, it's actually very, very small. So that's basically the cloud guard sales divided by the total IT spend in that country. Of course, this is not like a general purpose software. It's about security, right? But I think this still tells you
Eric,
the penetration of that market.
Hey, Eric, sorry to interrupt. Maybe if you stop sharing and then reshare again, it might clear up.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just wondering how to get rid of this. Yeah.
Oh, there it goes. It's gone now.
Okay. So let me just reshare. Yeah, it's annoying. Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Sam. Okay. Where am I? Yeah, we're looking at the macro data over here. Yeah. So these are the things we need to consider. So if we go back to the little dashboard we create. So I created this just 2 hours before the presentation, but I think this is a good chart. We're just exploring. So this is a good chart to make you think, which country I should maintain, which country I should grow, which country maybe I should exit. Probably is China, and should I exit China? I need to think about that, right? So coming back to what else we need to consider. Oh, this one. So if you look at the sales expense in total, so we look at China, 44%. That's so high. And you also see that compensation. Remember, compensation is defined as the commission we pay to the salespeople, right? But how come China is supposed to be a low-cost country? How come the compensation, the commission expense is so high? And my explanation is by looking at the product mix. So if you look at China, it's still more product sales than support, maybe resubscription of the software as a service. But if you look at Australia, right, and most of the revenue is generated from support. So maybe, just maybe, support has lower expenses. We have lower expenses associated with support than product. This is just one explanation, but either way, we can speculate, without too much data. But this is something we want to present, to the employer. Number one, we caught this. And number two, this is our speculation. We need to rationalize, the unusually high cost structure, for China. Okay, so that's another thing we need to take a look at. So now let's go back to this project. I just wrote up this in the afternoon. Okay, so in case we miss anything, we'll go back there. So this IT sales operation analytics. So operations analytics is always a good branch. You need to analyze the operations and the operating model. And so we can optimize the allocation of resources and manpower. So with the same costs and expenses, we can achieve more revenue, higher sales. That's the objective, right? So these are the technology stack. It's very simple technology: Excel, 6 table, and Power BI. Now, identify top 5 countries in APAC region by sales and margin. Okay, Australia, India, Japan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, right? And associated expenses to sales by category. And remember, we said product has higher expense to sales ratio than support. And we try to rationalize China's exceptionally high cost structure. And the third one, we need to optimize allocation of manpower and resources. So manpower is represented by what? By headcount, right? And resources are all the other expenses in annual operating plan to support profitable growth. And this is the important phrase. So it's not just growth. If the growth is not profitable, then it's no good. It has to be high sales and high margin percentage. So it's profitable growth. And we're going to focus on India and Indonesia, in 2 countries with low cost and fastest growing GDP and IT spend. So let's take a look to see if this is true. So India and China, right? So where's India? So India, I think I said India and Indonesia. India and Indonesia are the fastest growing GDP and IT spend. So India is growing at 8.2%. IT spend, not so much, but GDP growth is high. And Indonesia, we already talked about 8.3% growth, GDP, 12% growth, IT spend. And if you look at this dashboard, and I really, really like the good spot of India, right? High sales, high margin percentage. And Indonesia has potential, very, very high margin, but we need to really grow the sales. And if you look at this cost structure, Indonesia is only 6.6%. It's so low, and compensation is 3.8%. And if you look at Indonesia and sales per headcount, that is closest to the highest. Each one generate $1 million sales. That's crazy. Okay, so let's go back to Notion. And the last one I didn't elaborate. Let's read this first and then go back. Identify the risk of single point of failure and a recommended mitigation to reduce the reliance on just one distributor or partner in major markets. So Australia, we have only 2 distributors. Singapore, just 1. Japan, 1. India, 1. Is that true? Let's go back. If I go back to, where is it? here. So what is this metrics? So you can see this is partner, and then the column is country, and the value is actually, what is this? So this is actually sales. So this is, okay, so you can see, and the grand total is 100%. So this is how much sales as a percentage of the grand total that each partner generates in each country. Okay, so with this, you can see in Australia, we heavily rely on two partners, Arrow ECS and Westcom Group, 14%, 10 of total, I mean, grand total. So if one of them fail, then we lose a big market share in Australia, right? So Singapore, we heavily rely on, this guy and this. And what about, let me go back. Singapore, Japan, and India. So if you look at Japan, we rely on this one, reseller. Oh, I think that statement is not entirely true. This is because total is 16%. There's more if I wrote down. So this is not necessarily true. So I need to rephrase this, but it is something, I think you could look at, the single point of failure. But if this is not true, I can delete this. I still have three major, findings and recommendations. So I'm going to pause here. So this is what I meant by, so if you do a project like this, this project is not done. And I think if this is a real test, you probably want to, think about how can we combine maybe 4 pages into one dashboard. If this is a good one, I think if you have more time, you can improve it. But still, even with this, with a little bit of drill up and drill down capability, and I can easily roll up. And if I click this, I can look at only 2015 and only 2016, right? And I can drill down again. I click one more time, and then go back. And if I select a country, Japan, or maybe India, and then I can only look at India, right? So you see the navigation is good, but it really depends on the message you're trying to communicate. So this is Asia Pacific Sales Operations Review. So what kind of major and key messages you want to communicate? And you can make the decision, which visual you want to include. Is it sales and margin? You already have sales and margin by country. And do you want sales and margin by quarter? So this is just looking at the same thing from different angle and different dimension. And this is expenses and expenses variance. And this is not very obvious because if it's a positive variance, it should be bad, and negative variance is actually good. So we need to do something around there. And this is IT spend over GDP. This represents demand, right? This represents, which product type actually generate more revenue. Okay. Please do not forget to share the trick or sort in the quarter. Okay. You're very detailed. That's good. So let me show you. So quarter on the right, if I click quarter, and here is the technique. You can click sort by column over here. You see that I choose date. And so you can see this is the right sequence. Q1 15, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then Q1 16, Q2, Q3, Q4. If I change this, it's going to mess up. So if it's quarter and sorted by quarter, it's going to be really bad. Just a minute. Do you see? Q1 15, Q1 16, Q2 15, Q2 16. This is bad, right? Right. So if I want to, why I can do this? Because if you go back to this table, this quarter table I created, right? So this is the date. What is the date? So this is the last day of that quarter, right? So if it's Q1, it's March the 31st. Yeah. So if I want to sort the quarter in the right order, I can just sort the quarter by date. You got it? Right. So I click quarter and I sort by column and I change it to date. And this will show you the right sequence. Okay, good. All right, so with this example, I just want to show you, number one, you understand sales operation in a software as a service company. And if you understand, one case, I think you can apply for similar jobs in similar companies in similar industry, right? So this is basically sales analytic job, within a SaaS company, right? So I just want to show you this. And the second example, are you ready? So if you don't have any question about this case, I'm going to switch to the second one. So I take that as a no. So I'm going to the second case. So the second case is actually in SQL. So I'll take you to SQL. It's right here. Okay. The name of this script is TGAM. So just with the door closed in between you and me. TGAM represent the Global and Mail, right? The Global and Mail, the media company. Used to be a newspaper, but now it's all digital. But this job is, let me show you the job first. You see, I just create some fake job, and then very good bullet points. So this is the first one. All right. So it could be, media company, and could be telecom, and could be, but the marketing campaign, and particularly CRM email campaign, it followed the same process. So if you understand the job, through one use case or one project, you will be able to apply for similar jobs with different companies in different industries. So this is CRM email campaign. Okay, let's go back. Like any case, and I want you to be properly trained so you follow the right process. It's always important for you to create a database first, right? So you create this database. If I run this 3 lines of code and I run refresh, I should be able to have a new database called TGAM. So now I need to create the schema. So how many tables do I have? The email, campaign, and activity. 3 tables. So let me create the 3 tables. Okay, so just to show you the 3 tables, let me just refresh this. 3 tables: activity, campaign, and email. And activity has these columns, but you can tell from here, right? So email, the email object has several columns. I think you understand the email ID, and this is the email itself, and the email status. Valid, invalid could be 2 statuses, right? And consent status. So this is where you need a little bit knowledge domain knowledge about email campaign. I don't know how many of you know, it's called, I forgot the term. It's called CASL. So it's Canadian Anti-Spam Legislation, CASL, Canadian Anti-Spam Legislation. So meaning you have the option. I think you experienced this firsthand. Email is still a major channel, but everybody can testify. Email is a channel that's full of spams, right? So by law, if company sends you an email, the company should give you the option to opt out or to unsubscribe. So there should be a unsubscribe link or button for you to click. So that will come back as the consent status. So if the customer, if the prospect, choose to unsubscribe, then consent status is no. So you're not supposed to send them emails anymore, right? So obviously, email status, if the email is an invalid email, this is a very different thing from if the owner of the email address, allows you to, agrees to you sending them, marketing email messages. And then there is a primary key. So we make ID the primary key. So I think you understand this table. This is once again, very, very simple example. I like to use very, very simple example to make a big point, to make you understand, I hope, after today's presentation, when you walk away, you somewhat understand how email campaign works, okay? So this is the email object. What about campaign? So this is a different object. So campaign has an ID too, campaign ID, and later on we can track campaign and the performance of the campaign by the ID. It's also a primary key. So this is the ID, this is the campaign. And if it's an email campaign, we should have a subject, right? Subject of the email. But obviously, there should be more information. I just simplified this table to have only ID and the campaign, which is the description of the campaign and the subject of that campaign, okay? Then you have activity. So activity also has ID, and this is a unique key. So this is the primary key. So once again, ID in different table means different thing. But within the activity table, you should have a campaign ID. You should have an email ID. So there's the activity. So after you send this email, this campaign, and things will happen, right? So several things will happen. And this is the date of that activity. And this is the description of that activity. So I want you to pay attention to the foreign key. So campaign ID is also found in activity table, but this is the foreign key. When you say foreign key, it's always in reference to the primary key, the ID in campaign table. And this is foreign key. And this is in reference to the ID in the email table. So remember, we already ran this, but I want to show you the magic. So, and this is MySQL. If you go to database and click reverse engineer. Okay, then you click. Okay, wait. Okay, and click next. And click next. It's this database. And click next. Next. Execute. Next. Finish. Okay, so this is a very simple data model. And those of you who know me will tell you that I always emphasize the importance of the data model. So this is activity. Activity is actually the fact table. So I have two dimension table and one fact table. Okay. So you can see it's from ID to campaign ID, and this is ID to the email ID, right? So even this simple example has a data model. But with the data model, you can do a lot of good things. This database without data is very difficult to understand. It's very abstract. So we need to, put in some data. So I can insert values into this table. I can insert values into the campaign table. And I can insert values into this activity table. So now I refresh the schema. Let me just take a look at, each table. Let's look at the email table first. Is this easy to understand? It's pretty easy, right? So this is just the email ID, and this is the actual email. I made up the emails. And assuming all these are valid emails, right? How do you know? If you if you execute a campaign and if you send to 1,000 emails and then maybe 50 of them bounced, and they are invalid emails, and then you can do something, right? You can mark them invalid. So that's how you get the email status. So the next time you should exclude those emails, right? So consent status. So it has two values, opt in and opt out, right? So if people click unsubscribe or the button, press the button, they opt out. So assuming these are all opt in, okay, I close this. Let's go to the campaign table. And after this, I think you will have much better idea. Okay, to understand this, I will need to show you some comments over here. Okay, this. Okay, so this is the data flow. So imagine if the global mail is using the HubSpot. So this is the CRM system. If you know CRM, you probably know Salesforce is CRM, and Microsoft Dynamics is also CRM, and HubSpot is also CRM. And all the CRM have very, very similar, schema, very, very similar data structure. So the data flow is HubSpot data, can feed the SQL database, and then in order to launch the actual email campaign, we can use MailChimp. MailChimp is just a very handy tool for you to send mass emails. You can use MailChimp to send email to 5,000 people all at once, right? But you need to observe the rule. Subscription plan. So remember, this is the global mail, and it's digital now, right? And digital and print. So subscription plan, so the customer can choose to subscribe monthly or annual. And those of you, if you use, let's say, Microsoft Office or any other software, and right now it's all SaaS, subscription model. And they will tell you if you subscribe to the annual plan, it's going to be cheap, by month, right? Of course, you could subscribe month by month, but you're going to pay more. But you have more flexibility. If you don't like it, you can cancel it. But if you already subscribe to the annual plan, you already paid for the whole year, right? So just so, different people, you can give them different options. Subscription type. So some people choose digital. Younger people probably choose digital, and older people still want to read, the paper, the newspaper. And some of the customers choose both, I guess, so you could choose digital, print, or digital and print. And frequency of delivery, delivery daily or weekend only and weekday only. So you can just, get newspaper every day, or only weekend, or only weekday. Okay, so with this, I think now you understand, several campaigns. So the first campaign is for digital, and the subject is Globe to Go, global mail, Globe to Go at 1.99 a week. And this is cheap, right? It's very cheap, 1.99 a week. And digital and print only Saturday. So you see, the campaign is, or the product is a combination of plan and type. Oh wait, it's a combination of type and delivery, frequency, type and frequency, right? Yeah. So this digital and print Saturday, and digital and print Monday through Saturday. So that includes weekday and Saturday. So this is $6.99. This is what, and this is $10.99 a week. Okay, so just so we have 3 different campaigns. So obviously, we want to target 3 different campaigns to 3 different segments. So I think this implies before you launch the campaign, you need to do customer segmentation. So now we get down to the business. I hope you are with me. So we set up the project. Now we will go to the first step. So the first step is lead generation. So if you have how many email addresses? If you have 1 million email address, I think it'll be dumb that you send to everybody, right? No, we shouldn't do that. And first of all, for commercial reason, you only want to send the email to the campaigns to the people who have high propensity to respond, right? Yeah. So if people are more receptive, to whatever you try to sell them, and I think you will have higher success rate, and also lower cost. Some of you may think it's email and the cost is 0. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And in the old time, if it's direct mail, if it's, the real mail, put the letter in the envelope, and then it does cost the company. Or if it's telemarketing, and you don't want to call everybody, right? That's too expensive. Okay, so we need to generate the list, and we need to run inclusion and exclusion, and do not call list. If it's your telemarketing campaign, you need to run do not call list and CASL, and also resting rule. And some people may opt in. You can email them, but there are also rules. You shouldn't email them too often. So for instance, within the company, we say the days since the last send should be greater than 30. So meaning we choose to send each person maximum 1 email a month. If you violate that resting rule, this could be perceived as harassment, right? So these are the rules by law, or maybe for business consideration. But I want you to realize that there are inclusions and exclusions we should run. There's also laws and regulations we need to incorporate, in the SQL code. Do not call this Canadian anti-spam legislation resting rule. So these are the business, domain knowledge you need to learn, you need to understand, and even better, you need to know how to talk about. Now, imagine if you're called into an interview and people look at your resume and they know that you didn't have prior experience working on CRM marketing campaign, but surprisingly, I think how you get the job is always about how you surprise people, how you exceed people's expectation. And people call you for interview because they think you have potential. And maybe you're technically very strong, but they want to confirm that overall you're still a good candidate. But in this case, if you do your homework, right? If you have proper training, proper mentorship, proper mentor support, guidance, you will practice. You will learn all these terms. You will talk about, inclusion and exclusion, and you will talk about do not call list and Canadian anti-spam legislation rescue rules, and you talk like a pro. You talk like a professional, and then you will be able to surprise the employer. You will be able to impress them and leave a strong impression. So that's how you stand out, right? So so edit preferences. What is this? Uncheck, save. Okay, so these are some technical things we need to do. But otherwise, you could run, this is the exclusion. You can delete from the email if the email status says invalid, or the consent status says opt out. So this is something you should run. Okay, you can't run this. I think it's because of something like this. Oh, I think it's because in general, you don't have the right to delete anything from the database. Okay, so in order to do so, to imitate this process, you will have to change MySQL to unsafe. So it allows you to update and to run update and delete query, okay, with no restrictions. Okay, we can do that. Preference SQL editor. Okay, go to preference. Where is it? Edit. Preference. Just wait a second. And SQL editor. SQL editor here. And then uncheck save updates. Oh, here, uncheck. So after this, probably it will allow me to run that query. So within the company, only a very experienced individual is allowed to do this, because this is dangerous. This potential, because you're actually deleting data from the database, right? Oh, what happened? I think it just closed by itself. Okay, any question? Any question? Well, I bring this up. Any questions you may have? Let me close Power BI, so maybe I will have more memory. Oh, this is up. Let me close Power BI. I'm happy that you're still with me. Hit save. So today I'm just using very simple example to make big point. All right. So for the in the interest of time, maybe I don't need to run every single one, but I want to take you through the whole sequence. And this is actually much simplified. The actual process is more complex than this, but this includes the skeleton, the core process. So we delete emails. So these are exclusions. And what about this? So this is the regular expression. So I can use to check if the email by its look is valid or invalid, right? And if you don't understand this, this is actually, it's pretty easy for you to find the explanation. You can use ChatGPT, just copy paste this. It will tell you what each part does, right? It's basically tell you, you will have a at symbol, and then there's a dot, right? And after this, you will have at least 2-digit, you could have a COM, you could have a, AI or NET and something like that. So these are just the rules to check if the email by its look is valid, is invalid. So if you have a special do not call list, and then you could run this query. So if one particular email is found in that do not call list, then you can delete this, right? So this is just another exclusion. So what about these? So this is the CASL resting rule. So remember, the day since last sent is greater than 30. So you can use this. And after this is the first stage, list generation. The second generation is segmentation. So you can segment 1 million emails by age group, by gender, by education, by occupation. So age, gender, so these are demographic, variables. And then even education and occupation, these are demographic. But you could have some really highly predictable variable. But that is probably the work of a data scientist. Now, you can get those policy rules or the commercial rules from a data scientist, and they will tell you, if you use a number of rules, you're going to find a group of people who are highly receptive of your emails. And the likelihood of these people respond to your email is relatively high, right? So once again, you do this, you do need to collaborate or work with other team, or other people. And what is this? So this is important. It's you sow a random seed to randomly separate email lists into control and test group. And some of you probably know A/B testing. There's always a better way to do things. So you want to always try new ways. And for the same population, you want to separate them into, in this case, control group and test group. And so 80% of the people go into control group and 20% of the emails go into the test group. And then you treat these two groups differently. And these two are randomly distributed. So meaning if the KPI of one group is better than the other group, if one group is shows better results than the other group, that's because of the strategy. So I will explain the strategy. So this is how we separate the group. So we explain the group first, and it has to be random. So then if the performance is different, we can attribute the difference in performance to the strategy. So meaning strategy B is actually performing better than strategy A, right? In this case. Okay, go down. So this is the campaign design. And then you will work with IT, and you can load the list and use MailChimp to mass email to, I don't know, maybe 500,000 people. And let's wait maybe 2 weeks or a month, and then you can do a post-campaign analysis. So in this case, you want to track everything by campaign, and then you start to calculate the KPI. So this is the same. This is a, let me see if I can run this. I should be able to. Oh, I think, let me just rerun this. let me just run this. Let me just run this. Let me just rerun 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 this. Okay, go down to post-campaign analysis. So I have a temporary table staffs. Let me see. Oh, so then I can look at staffs. Okay, so you look like this. It's a very simplified, it's a much simplified example. So 3 campaigns, we sent 2 emails and deliver 1 and opens 1. And the customer click on this. And then 1 bounces and 0 unsubscribe, right? So in fact, maybe I should show you this one first. So you can see the activity, what I meant by activity. So this is the activity ID, and this is the same campaign, right? 1, and the email ID. So if you look at campaign ID 1 and sent to email 1, so 4 things happened to this single email. So the email was sent, the email was delivered, the email was even opened, the email was clicked. So this is the perfect situation. So this is the same campaign, but another email. This was sent and bounced. Okay. I hope you understand. So this is different campaign, and send, deliver, open, and he doesn't like it. He unsubscribed. Okay. So this is campaign 2, and the email got sent to that address, delivered and opened, and then nothing happened. He didn't click. So 5, the email is sent, deliver, open, click. Okay, this is also good. And the last email is sent and deliver, and nothing happened. Okay, so coming back to, wait, hold on, you need to close this. Okay, so now you see, this is just a summary, right? So the first campaign, 2 sent, 1 deliver, 1 open, click, bounce, and subscribe. So you can calculate open rate. So this is 100% open, 100% click, 50% bounce, and 0% unsubscribe. Right? So if you really want to rank the campaign, you can run this query. So you can see this digital and print Saturday is number 1. By what? Order by the number of opens. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to pause. So we have 12 minutes. And I want to ask you, do you have any questions? So we still have 10 people. Any questions? But this is essentially, what people do to manage a CRM email campaign. But now I want you to read this. I think you understand a lot more. Okay, so the first bullet, you work with marketers and engineers. So who are the marketers? Marketers are the creative people, right? So the marketers, you probably have copywriters, they will create very good, content that engage the customers, including maybe both text and image, right? So marketers. What about engineers? And I think the engineers will help you execute the email campaign. And sometimes if you don't have engineers, you probably need to do that using HubSpot, right? So work with marketers to design the campaign and work with engineers to execute the email campaigns and generate the leads and drive sales. Because drive sale, this is the ultimate goal, right? And you cover end-to-end process from list generation to campaign execution to performance measurement. I think by now you perfectly understand what list generation means and also campaign execution. And this is the post-campaign performance measurement. 3 stages of the end-to-end CRM email campaign, right? And then generate a target email list based on business rule. Now you understand this too. Do not call list and Canadian anti-spam legislation. And then also segment the email list based on demographic behavior and preference characteristics for personalized content. Yeah, so it's always 2 steps. Customer segmentation, step 1, and product recommendation, step 2. So you just have to be very specific, about one group, and then you design the product for that particular group. Okay, after that, you use a random seed to divide the email list into control and test group, and use A/B email creatives. So A/B, what's the difference? The difference could be the subject. Now you can use a different subject, holding everything else the same, holding everything else constant. If it's a different subject, and then B is performing better than A in terms of open rate, click rate, and then you feel confident to say the subject of creative B is actually better. So knowing that is important. Maybe next time you will switch to the subject of creative B, and then you come up with new challengers. You want to challenge this, so this will become A, and then you come up with new B to challenge A, right? So we call A and B strategy. Sometimes we call A and B strategy champion and challenger strategy. So the existing strategy is always a champion. You crown this strategy champion, but we always want to improve it. We come up with something creative, but we're not sure, but we want to test it. So we name this new strategy, new creative challenger. So we want to use the challenger to challenge the champion. But if challenger beats the champion, and then we will crown the challenger new champion. We'll come up with another one. So how different? This is email campaign. So you could be different in subject and the body and the call to action, CTA. Once again, sometimes we use the A-frame. So if you use CTA, that surprised the employer. And then because you sound looking, you talk like you have been working in this industry and in this role for a while, right? And that surprised people. And people understand that, you must have done extensive research. You have done your homework, and you're smart. And the fact that you have walked all this distance and trying to get this job is touching, because you really, really care about this opportunity, right? And people are all very, emotional. And I think most hiring managers, they want to give opportunity to somebody who is motivated, smart, and gets the job done. So even though you're not perfect, you don't have everything they're looking for, but in several important things, you just stand out and shine, and then you will get the job, right? So if you engineer your own success, if you do all these, once again, with proper guidance from the instructor, from the mentor, and you will be able to nail every single use cases. So let me just finish this. Define KPI, open rate, click rate, and conversion rate to measure email campaign performance and improve the ROI, return on investment, and reduce the cost of acquisition. And those of you who have worked with marketing probably know, if we run campaigns, there's 3 kinds. And it makes sense, right? So 3 kinds of campaign: to acquire new customers, to keep the existing customer active, and also to keep the existing customer from, leaving for your competition, right? And all of us, you have your cell phone, you have your cell phone plan, and it's always Rogers, Bell, and who else? Not, trying to competing with each other and try to steal you from the competition. So you understand there's 3 kinds of campaign, right? Yeah. So acquisition campaign, activation campaign, and retention campaign. Yeah. So this is assumably this is for acquisition. So you can define a KPI and to reduce the cost of acquisition. Okay. There's a question from Chen Peng. Is there intern opportunity after the bootcamp? The bootcamp itself includes career services, so we help you to create resume and design that interview script and practice. We do have a real-time project. You know, we offer at additional costs. If you think, you know, all these use cases or projects are not enough, so we can offer you that opportunity to work on real-time project and for the real time. The real clients, in fact, Global ML is one of our clients. So the real clients are either Canadian or American. So we do have clients from the US. But I think those are for people either direct from school, you know, who got absolutely no experience. You want to have some real work experience, you know, on your resume. And that definitely, you know, will help to maximize your chances. Do we have presence in Manitoba? We don't have physical presence. We have physical presence in Ontario and BC. But we do cover Canada from coast to coast. We schedule our bootcamp to accommodate most people's schedule. So nowadays it runs from 7:30 to 10:30 Eastern time. Yeah, but if for any reason you cannot, you know, attend the live lesson, you can always watch the recording. Any other questions? And 2 more minutes to go. I hope you liked today's session. You know, once again, I'm hoping to use some very simple example to show you. So we have more. Community solar, it's an energy project. And this is a real estate investment trust. This is in your real estate. And this is retail e-commerce. Coming back here. So these are the skills you need. Imagine if all these skills and project experience on your resume, you know, I'm very confident, and you should feel confident too. This kind of resume will get you interviews, but the problem is you will need to defend, you know, the skills you have and the experience you acquire, you know, from doing project or from working on real-time project. But you know, with the right instruction, the proper guidance, and the proper mentorship, there's nothing you couldn't do. And once again, you don't need to go back to school. You know, these are the things. What's your opinion? It's not hard. It's just you know it or you don't, right? So the industry experts will be able to, you know, give you the insider knowledge and the information, and you learn it, and you will be able to land jobs. Any question? No? 1 more minute. So this is you know, data career growth hacking. I have seen so many people. They are where they are today. You know, they achieve amazing growth in short 1 year and year and a half, because you know, they invest in the right place. Chen Peng, is foundation required for bootcamp, and when does it start? So, Chen, it does require a data fundamental. So we actually run a data fundamental course every 6 weeks, every month and a half. We used to call that pre-camp. The pre-camp is we need to help every student to flatten the learning curve. So before the bootcamp starts, you have already worked with every data tool. And once again, we use small little project like this just to get you warmed up, to every single data tool. Yeah, and that's a really good thing, if you do data fundamental and then you're not zero. And some people come in with zero coding experience, but after the data fundamental, you can code SQL, you can code Python, but maybe not very advanced, not very deep. But then building on that foundation, you will be able to work on small project first and then bigger project, more complex project. All right, so I think I'm done. I thank you for staying with me for the two projects. I hope you walk away with some, fresh insight. And please, let me give you, just give me one moment. Let me give you my calendar. Please take this with you. And you can schedule one-on-one with me. I'm not sales. I truly really want to help you build a data career. And feel free to send me your resume and your LinkedIn profile, so I'm prepared when I meet you. I will give you, some advice, how to strategize, how to make the next move based on your situation. All right. So thank you very much for spending the time with me. Okay, Chan Pung again. How do we test out our foundation satisfies the bootcamp? Yeah, we actually have quizzes and assignments on the learning portal. So you will need to submit the test and it will be graded. And there is also, a small Power BI project like the one I just showed you. And you will need to present. How do we, yeah. So that's, did I answer your question? How do we test our foundation satisfy the bootcamp? Okay, great, thank you. I hope, we will talk to some of you again. And let's keep in touch. Bye for now.